Well, speaking of Ardna Crusha, I mean, that was a moment when the state made a radical decision which worked to build a hydroelectric energy station. Now, my question is about, are you going to the Bonn Climate Conference, Minister, and are you going to have to admit at that conference that the government, on the critical question of climate change, is failing to take the kind of radical action that is necessary to avoid massive fines for failure to meet emission targets and to take seriously the move to transition to a low-carbon economy that can protect our environment and indeed help contribute to protecting the entire planet? Because isn't it the case, Minister, that we are disastrously failing in that regard at the moment, and are nowhere close even to meeting our targets?
2 minutes, Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Boyd Barrett. We're going to be here for a while. I propose to take questions 30, 33, 48 and 65 together. Sorry, 30, 33, 48 and 65 together.
Yeah, okay.
Right. Recognising the frustration experienced across Ireland. Sorry, just no. Sorry, yeah. Sorry. I'm one ahead of myself. Sorry about this now. Sorry. Question 29. Sorry, Gino Kenny had 2 questions down. Sorry, that's where I made my mistake. Right. The United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the UNFCCC, will hold its 23rd conference of the parties, COP23 in Bonn, Germany, from the 6th to the 17th of November 2017. This meeting will be the second since the adoption of the Paris Agreement in December 2015, with negotiations since then focusing on developing the rulebook necessary to give full effect to the Paris Agreement. I expect to attend the high-level segment of the conference, and my department will lead Ireland's delegation for the full conference. The Paris Agreement sets out a long-term goal to put the world on track to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial levels, and to pursue efforts to limit the temperature increase to 1.5 degrees. Additionally, the agreement aims to strengthen the ability of countries to deal with the impacts of climate change through resilience and adaptation, and to make finance flows consistent with the pathway towards greenhouse gas emissions and climate-resilient development. Ireland will contribute to meeting the objectives of the Paris Agreement via the commitment tabled by the EU on behalf of its Member States in 2015. This commits to a reduction of at least 40% in EU-wide emissions by 2030 compared to 1990, which will be met through reductions of 43% in the EU emissions trading system, the ETS, and 30% in the non-ETS sector compared with 2005 levels. The specific details of Ireland's contribution, as well as the contributions to be made by other Member States, are currently being negotiated at EU level. The parties to the UNFCCC are committed to finalising in 2018 the structures through which the Paris Agreement will drive adaptation, mitigation, transparency and capacity building action. The agreement also provides for a facilitative dialogue scheduled for 2018, which would assess the adequacy of global efforts to date in meeting the agreement's objective. This will in turn lay foundations for a global stocktake process which will drive on a 5-year basis, beginning in 2023, continued progress and increased ambition by all parties towards the achievement of the goals of the agreement. The ambition of Ireland for the forthcoming COP meeting, together with our EU partners, is to ensure that sufficient progress is made across the full range of issues to ensure that COP24 in 2018 is in a position to formally adopt the key elements of the Paris Agreement rulebook.
Thanks, this Minister. The remainder will be included in the official report. Deputy Boyd Barrett.
You're not really answering the question. Is about us, about this state's ability to meet its targets and to take seriously climate change and to do something about it. We're failing disastrously. Would you accept that, Minister? Carbon emissions are increasing. They're up from 56 million tonnes of carbon in the 1990s up to nearly 60 million tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent now. So it's getting worse. Where the EPA say we're going to face big fines that we're nowhere near meeting our targets. The 20% target, forget it. They're saying we'll be lucky if we get 4, 5 or 6% reduction in emissions. The Friends of the Earth say we're in denial. And you can see it. What is actually happening? I raised forestry the other day. We are pathetically underperforming in our afforestation programme. Nowhere close even to targets we had in the past. Public transport, very expensive. Some of the lowest subsidies in Europe, no serious reduction in car use because we're not doing anything to seriously reduce the cost and improve the quality of public transport. We're still giving out licences for gas and oil. The renewable energy scheme seems to be largely focused on big corporations, not available to small businesses and communities.
Minister,
we're just failing. Is it not true, Minister?
Has 1 minute.
Deputy Boyd Barrett, I agree with you that we're coming from a very difficult position, absolutely. And, you know, definitely, look, the last decade, the money wasn't there to put the investment in that should have been there. The targets that were set for 2020 probably didn't accurately reflect where we were coming from. But having said all that, my focus is on making sure that we can not only achieve our 2030 targets, but overachieve. And, you know, while there's no doubt about it, we have a very challenging road ahead of us in relation to that. We are making significant progress in some areas. We're a global leader in relation to the development of ocean energy technology. We are the global leader when it comes to variable renewable energy like wind on the grid. We can take a 60% loading on an isolated grid. No other country in the world has done that to date. We have genotyped 1 million cattle, which will have a direct impact in relation to beef production. So we are making progress, not as quick as we should have, and yes, that has to significantly ramp up from here on.
Final supplementary.
But there is. I don't see much sign. I mean, you've mentioned a few things, but look, forestry. We all know the carbon sink, right? There's no move to dramatically ramp that up that I can see, right? There's been talk, but nothing, and there's not going to be any increase going in the current levels of investment and the current policy. Why don't we slash public transport fares? I mean, slash them. If you want to get people out of cars, slash fares. Fares are really expensive. Where's the rollout of a big insulation programme that is easy and affordable for people to reduce energy use?
Minister.
Why are all the R&D tax credits going to multinationals instead of going into universities to develop renewable energy sources that are sustainable?
Minister. Final response.
Look, I think this particular government has renewed the focus in this area. We had a full-day discussion on the whole area of climate and the related aspects of it. You'll see that reflected in the budget that will take place next week. We are going to be rolling out the Renewable Heat Incentive Scheme later this year, which will have an impact not only in stimulating biomass, but also making the forestry crop far more valuable. I know, and I've met with Quilty yesterday about mobilising the forestry and timber production. So things are happening in it. I can understand your frustration in relation to it. I equally share that frustration that things need to move and need to move faster in relation to that. And it will take not a whole of government approach, a whole of society approach. And I think that's why the national dialogue on climate change is so vitally important to engage communities across the country. I met a group of young people from Ballinasloe last week, and they were talking about climate refugees. 9 people every second are moving out of their homes because of climate. And that starts here in Ireland. We have it in the Shannon Callows, where families that have been there for generations now have to leave. So it's happening in our own communities, and we need to motivate those communities as well.